I love magic. Other than ridiculously oversized swords wielded by average-looking people and dwarves arguing over gold, it's what makes fantasy, well, fantastical. I love the flashy colours and the fact it provides ranged attacks that aren't bows. I love that it can be used to light a cave instead of a torch and makes people say hilarious stuff while they're using it. Its limitless potential always makes me feel in awe while it's being used, and I'm excited to see what it's going to do next, but it's also kind of its downfall. I like to think of myself as a pretty logical guy, and I like to think I have a pretty scientific mind, so when I see magic being used in any kind of media, I always wonder how it works, and to be honest, it kind of ruins it for me. All across media, magic or magic happenings just seem to be a kind of deus ex machina get-out-of-jail-free card that writers use to allow their protagonists to overcome very specific obstacles. As much as I love Tolkien, it's ridiculous how often Gandalf just randomly shows up as everyone is about to die to save the day. He can make rooms go dark and light that little light on his staff. He can cast a protective barrier and seemingly exorcise people, but none of his powers are explained and there's very little reason behind them, so I don't know what he can do with them or why. Their ambiguity makes them interesting, but at the same time feels like they're just too contrived. Like it's always such a huge coincidence that the hero has the exact power that helps them overcome the situation, and when you think about it, both the situation and the solution were made up by the same writer, and it makes what should be a believable world feel so fake and false. It's personal preference at the end of the day, but I just much prefer a well-defined system in any type of fiction. I can imagine what an AT field is and how it works based on its scientific connotations. I mean, it's essentially a force field, and I've got a basic grasp on how fields work. I can completely grasp how bending works, and the limitations on certain types of benders is fairly obvious, even though we all agree Aang should just pull the air out of the lungs of his opponents. But the best, most well-defined magic system in any fiction I've seen is alchemy. Alchemy is so fucking perfect to watch, and its well-defined rules make it so I feel like I'm participating in the story by watching, rather than just waiting for a magic user to randomly solve a problem in a way I could never foresee, because I don't understand how it works. The rules of alchemy are explained up front and in detail at the beginning of every episode of Brotherhood. Alchemy is the science of deconstructing and reconstructing matter, but it is impossible to make something out of nothing. If one wishes to obtain something, something of equal value must be given. This is the law of equivalent exchange, and the law of equivalent exchange sets up the entire premise of alchemy within the story. Ed gets his metal weapons from actual metal nearby, or from minerals present in the ground, or in one case from the iron in a large pool of blood. When you repair something with alchemy, unless you add something to it, the overall structure will be weaker because of the material lost. It makes so much logical sense, and when the characters within the show use alchemy, it never feels like they're just making it up as they go along, even when they use it to overcome an obstacle, because it has such well-defined rules and limitations. It feels so easy to get immersed in the world, and even though they're basically practicing magic, it has such a scientific grounding both within the narrative and in the way it's presented to us, the audience, that it just makes sense. At the end of the day, alchemy is basically chemistry. Even the background alchemy is based on is realistic. There are different kinds of alchemy, and each alchemist has their specialty that they work on and study as scientists. The biggest drawback of this being that to gain access to government funding and research materials to further alchemy as a science, they must become dogs of the military. The progress of alchemy isn't just some random wizard inventing spells in a way that's never explained. It is a massive taxpayer-funded military endeavour. A state alchemist's main duty is to serve the military. Any scientific gains are coincidental. We get some of the best moments in the show from the strict rules of alchemy. Colonel Roy Mustang, the flame alchemist, and the highest ranked alchemist in the military, is known as one of the most powerful alchemists in Amestria, but since his power relies on creating explosions using sparks from his gloves and oxygen in the air, he is hilariously useless in the rain. Conversely, because Ishval is a desert country, the air is much more volatile to begin with, and Roy's flame alchemy is extremely powerful there, and it becomes clear to us how he rose to the rank of colonel. Basically, what I'm trying to say here is that magic is so amazing and wonderful, but when it's well defined and I know the rules, I can get so much more invested into the world and story. When I know how something works, and the actions of the characters are within the confines of a well-defined system, they seem so much more realistic than when magic is used to produce seemingly random effects that fit the plot in the way the writer wants it to at a particular time. Soft magic systems are okay, but I prefer it hard every time. Thank you to Hiromu Arakawa for writing the best magic system and one of the greatest stories ever told. Thank you to Al for being the pure heart we all need in our lives. And thank you for watching. Cheers.